Hello, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here. So thankful for you to be a part of this. Or for letting me be a part of your life and telling you what I think about the Bible. This is my commentary. And welcome. I'm glad you're here. So, Matthew chapter 15 is interesting. It starts out with Jesus having this discussion with some of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, okay? And they're asking him all these questions, and they're, they were just so nitpicky, right? And they're like, hey, your disciples eat and they don't wash their hands. Doesn't that seem like a bizarre, thing to point out and be like, oh, y'all are gross? And their whole point was they were unclean. Okay. And so Jesus goes into this whole thing with saying, you know what? If you eat something, if you put something in your body by mouth, if you eat it, it's coming out and it's gone. And there you go. But and that doesn't make your whole body unclean. That's not what does it, guys. So he's really giving them this lesson about you have gotten this all wrong. And they were really, and we've said this before about I have, I think, maybe, have said this before about the Pharisees. They they had gotten so caught up in their traditions, right? They just were really into going by the absolute letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law. Right? We talked about that that distinction a long time ago, way back when we were in the beginning of Matthew. And I have no idea how long ago that was. But anyway, so he's telling them, you guys are missing the point. You're missing the point because it says, and he makes a reference to Isaiah, and he says, you hypocrites. See, he's always calling them hypocrites. And what's a hypocrite? That means somebody that is not living the way that they are they're not putting their words into practice. Their actions are not speaking louder than their words, right? So we've got this thing going on here, and he says to them, he's like, you hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. So this is Matthew 15 starting. That was verse 7. So here's verse 8. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are but rules taught by men. And so Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen up and understand. What goes into a man's mouth does not make him unclean, but what comes out of his mouth, that is what makes him unclean. Ooh. So he's in this conversation with him, and then the disciples get away from him. Peter says, you got to explain this to us. What are they? We don't know what you just said. And he says, are you still so dull? Why have you not gotten this, guys? Guys, why? What is the deal? And this goes back to Matthew 12. And Matthew 12:34, this is one of my favorite verses. It says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And this is exactly the same situation. And Jesus, don't you know, he was like, we have been over this and over this and over this. And I keep telling you guys, this same thing over and over again. Your hearts are not right. You're doing it, you're backwards a little bit here. You're going all by this tradition and what's in your head and what you think you want and what you think I want you to be doing. And you're getting it wrong. Okay, so we have this situation that has just happened. And so Jesus goes across, they left wherever they were, and they come across, and they're in the land of Gentiles. They're on the other side of where's the Sea of Galilee? Oh my goodness. So they've gone to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is Sea of Galilee, and which is the Gentiles, where Gentiles lives. And so they get out, and Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and a Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him. So she was what's it called? She was a Syrophoenician woman. And so what that means is okay, so this area is called, well, it's in current Lebanon. And it's one of the oldest continually inhabited cities in the world. So Syrophoenician means she was Canaanite descent, native of Phoenician seaboard, and Greek in religion and probably speech. They were pagans. So, because the Greeks had all those gods, this was a kind of a Greek, I mean, influenced by the Greeks. It was a pagan woman, okay? And so she sees them coming. And so she comes up and she says, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away. She keeps crying out from us. So this woman kept on. She kept on. And he answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Don't misunderstand what Jesus is saying here. He said from the very beginning that he was coming to the Jews first because he wanted the Jews to share about him to the rest of the world. Okay, Jews first, then the Gentiles. That's how that was the model he wanted for the word to get out. Okay, that's how he wanted that to be, and it didn't exactly work that way. Okay, because the Gentiles on the whole were more open to who he was and learning from him and accepting that he was the Messiah, right? So he says that to her, and she says, the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. And he replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Okay, so he's not calling her a dog. The children would be the children of Israel. Okay, that would be the Jews. And this word here, it was very interesting. A commentary that I read said that the Greek word here used for dog would be like a pet, not like a wild group of dogs, not like a stray that's gotten a little bitey, you know what I mean? This is a cared for pet in a home, okay? And she said, yes, Lord, she said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And then Jesus answered, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. So he's just had this conversation with the Pharisees and then with his own disciples that he's like, you guys are not, you've seen all these miracles that I've done and you still are questioning who I am and how I'm doing what I'm doing. What is wrong with you? It's like he said to Peter, are you still so dull? What will it take to get through your head? What will that take? Why is it this way? Okay. So he says this, and he's immediately confronted by this Gentile woman who is putting to shame the so-called people that should know all the answers about Jesus, right? The ones that have been with him. I mean, she is just this faith that she has to have heard who he was and to become seeking him out and to respond in such a way that Jesus was like, all right, yep, I see. This is what I'm talking about. I wanted him to turn around and go, hey, guys, you see this woman? You see what she's saying? She's got it more right. She's getting it right. Yeah, could you talk to them, ma'am? Could you tell them about your faith and where you got it from? Could you please explain it to them? And I just think this is one of the best stories. And maybe it's because I'm a woman and a mother. I don't know. Maybe that's why I relate to this so much. But this is one of those stories that you often would skip over. But when you read it and you consider all the things that are going on around it, all these conversations that Jesus is having with his own people, and then this woman comes so boldly to him and so persistently comes and says, you can. she persevered. And she also didn't deny who she was. Like Jesus said, he basically said, you're a Gentile. You're not. And she says, I know I'm not. I know I'm not. You're right, I'm not. She didn't come in and say, well, you see, my grandmother was Jewish. She didn't try to find, or my brother's cousin, sister, well, that would be her sister. My next door neighbor's Jewish. We're very close with them. They always invite us over for their feast, right? So I mean, she didn't try and come up with some kind of story. She immediately said, yeah. And the dog gets crumbs from the table. Guess what? The kids are feeding the dog under, right? They're taking things off their plate and passing it down. All the things they don't want to eat, I'm getting. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what's happening. See, he was telling them, they didn't want to hear it, and she is sneaking it from the table. It's like the Pharisees, all these Jews that are not believing who he is and not grasping onto all of these miracles that he has done and the power that he has, and they recognize the authority, but it really makes them nervous and uncomfortable, and they're like, I don't know, this is going to shake things up. I don't like it, but goodness, we're going to just cast this aside, and this woman catches it and runs with it. And she comes and she says, you are son of David, Lord, son of David. You can heal my daughter. You can get rid of the demon that is possessing her. Because guess who? The only person who can go be that decisive with, I mean, any of us, you and I, we can go toe to toe with the devil. I don't want to, and I don't like it, and it's not fun. It is a battle. It's spiritual warfare, and we face that in our lives as believers. That's just what happens. That's what our life is. And it just like we were talking about with Peter and walking on the water. And we have that, like C.S. Lewis says, we have these moments of grace. And when that grace is about to happen, something comes in and gets us all distracted. And we lose our focus. We lose our eyesight right on Jesus. We lose that, and we have all of this, and we can fight, and we can go, but we might get tired, and we will not be able to put the devil in his place. But do you know who can? You know who can just speak a word and it's done, and he can't argue? Jesus. Jesus is the only one who can put him in his place and shut him up indefinitely. And this woman is seeing that. She says, this is the only option. You are the only option that we have. My daughter is struggling. Please help me. You can save her. And Jesus really just appreciates that. He appreciates that perseverance. That she didn't give up. She was honest about who she was and what she was after. In her belief that he was the only option she had. He really appreciated that. He says, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. Hebrews tells us to approach the throne of grace with confidence. That is what this woman was doing. Franklin Jensen, who I don't always love everything he has to say in his commentary, but I thought this was interesting. He said that it's mentioned in the Bible, Old and New Testament, like 184 times about Jesus healing or God healing, completely healing someone from different kinds of things, right? And that's only like specific. I mean, it's mentioned 184 times, but it in some of those times where it's mentioned, it's like right after this story in Matthew, it says Jesus left there and went along the Sea of Galilee, and he went up to a mountain and sat down, and great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. So right after this interaction with this woman, this is what happens. But see, and it says, so these people were healed. It doesn't give a number. So it's mentioned 184 times, but the number of healings that have happened was way more than that. Because remember, he's had crowds of like 5, 10, 15,000. And then again, right after that, this group that was with him that he was healing, guess what he does for them? He feeds them. It's a group of at least 4,000. It's 4,000 men. And so, I mean, you can double, triple it for kids, right? And wives and children's and families, right? A lot of people. And so right after that, he feeds them. He does it again. He says, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days. They've had nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way. Look, guys, we've been with these people. And again, they're like, we don't have enough to feed them. And he says, bring it. What have you got? Oh, some loaves and some fish. Okay, we have 7 loaves. 7 loaves and a few fish. And again, what does Jesus do? He gives thanks, breaks it, and keeps breaking it. And they pass out this food. Again, everyone eats till they're satisfied. They're satisfied. And then they have 7 baskets of leftovers. Again, he's doing these miracles. And he's feeding people, and he's healing them. And it's mentioned 184 times in the Bible. But how many times do we pray for healing for someone without really believing that it's going to happen? And that really kind of struck me, because I've done that numerous times. And I always do it with the caveat that, Lord, heal this person. You can heal them. And then I always, in my mind and in the back of my mind and somewhere deep in my heart that I don't like to talk about, I'm like, well, but I don't know if God will, because I mean, it's his decision. I mean, he can. I believe that he can, but I don't know if he will. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be disappointed that this prayer is not being answered. And so is this like the people of Nazareth then, who miracles weren't done in their cities in that city because they didn't have the faith to make it happen. They didn't believe he could, because they just thought he was Mary's son. Right? But this woman who has no claim to this blessing. That's the thing. She doesn't have a claim to it. She doesn't have a claim to the healing that her daughter gets. But she gets it anyway. Because she goes boldly and persistently. She doesn't give up. And as a result of that, that woman's life was changed. Her daughter's life was changed. Therefore, probably a lot of their friends and families. That gave them a testimony for them to share. And anybody that knew that child and saw how she struggled, and then can look at them and see that little girl acting in a completely normal, happy, carefree, well life, had to go, oh my gosh, I can't, what in the world? Huh? Must be the Lord. I mean, there must be something to this guy she met. That's the only response. That's the only answer. So, are you going to persistently bug the Lord? Are you going to keep bugging him and keep saying, I know you can. I know. I know you don't have to. I know that I'm not the one, but guess what? I know you can. And only you can give it. I'm going to stay with you until you give me what I want. It's a lot like Jacob in Genesis. So in Genesis, I think it's 32. I wrote it down. Yeah, Genesis 32, verses 22 through 32 is where Jacob, who, remember, that was Isaac's son, so Abraham's grandson, Jacob and his twin brother Esau. Remember the Edomite? I talked about them a little bit. We discussed it briefly when I was talking about Herod. So you see here the rabbit trails, right? So this is Jacob, and at one point he's crossing a river, and he's afraid, and he's kind of I believe that he's running from Esau, his brother, because he's heard that his brother's coming out to settle the score, right? Because he stole his birthright, right? So he sends his wives and his maidservants and his 11 sons, and he sends them, and he stays behind, and a man comes and wrestles with him all night long. And Jacob says the next morning, he's like, "Who are you?" And he was like, "I'm not telling you. You keep on." And he said, "Let go of me." And Jacob said, "No, I'm not letting go until you give me a blessing." And at that moment it says, "Your name is no longer Jacob. You shall be Israel." And so his name was changed from Jacob to Israel. It's where all of this is that's the big daddy, the big patriarchal daddy, Israel. It's where the tribes come from. He's got 11. He's going to have one more. So he's going to have the 12 tribes, right? This is the actual father of them all. And his name is changed. And Israel means, and let me look what it means. I don't want to get it wrong. I know what it means, but I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to tell you the wrong. I want to get the order right. I should have marked this. Y'all know I'm crazy. But anyway, so this is how we know it's the Lord, that he has he's preparing to meet Esau. This is how we know that Israel was, that God changed, that it was God who he was wrestling with, because it says Israel means he struggles with God. He says, I am wait, where is it? No. I will not let. So the man said, I'm just going to read this to you. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. And the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the man asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." And Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. And Jacob called the place Peniel, Peniel, I don't know if I'm saying that right, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Because usually if you saw God face to face, you were immediately dead, because, the glory of the Lord would just knock you down. You can't, our flesh can't handle it. It's too magnificent. You die. So anyway, that reminds me of this woman. That's what Jacob did. He wrestled with the Lord. He didn't give up. I'm not letting go until you give me a blessing. And that almost sounds a little bit like, that's presumptuous, isn't it? I'm not going to be that irreverent. That's disrespectful. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can approach the throne of grace with confidence. I mean, Peter said, tell me to get out of the boat. Command me to do it. And Jesus said, come here. Come on. Peter was being a little presumptuous too, wasn't he? That he would be able to do it. Because God, he knew Jesus wasn't going to let him drown. Oh, see how what they have in common? They're not giving up. They're not giving up. So you keep after it. Be persistent. See if you can move God with your faith so that he is like, wow, I did a good job with that one. She's got it right. She's persistent. I appreciate that. Do you know why he appreciates it? Because Jesus loves you.